Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nomad CEO. I'm here with Luke Tobin, a super famous entrepreneur. I'm really honored to have him on the show. And Luke is also the founder of Tobin Capital, and he helps entrepreneurs and founders to find their exit and have a legacy for them. And so, Luke, welcome to the show. I'm going to ask you
Thank you.
straight away the same question I always ask my guests at the beginning, which is, what was your transformation? How did you end up where you are today as a successful entrepreneur? I'm just assuming that this was not an easy road. It was not you also had your bumps on the road, I guess. And so that's where I would like to start.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, I think for me, there's been no easy road at all. So from my early years, I left home very early, just 16, and kind of that gave me I think having to fend for myself early on gave me a lot of impetus to try and get financial security. So I always chased that, but I often chased it probably in the wrong places early on, like commission-based sales jobs and jumping around, just trying to chase a higher paycheck and various bits and bobs. But I've always been innately entrepreneurial. So my first business I had when I was 19, and then since then I've had 8 companies. I've been fortunate enough to have kind of 3 exits along the way, very different sizes, a 5, a 6, and an 8-figure one. So they've got bigger, which is good. But it's been a fascinating roller coaster of failures, misses, and some success. Yeah.
Amazing. So let's just dive right into it, because this is your specialty, right? So you help founders to find their exit. The question I have is, what are the, let's say, 3 biggest mistakes founders make when it comes to finding their exit? I mean, what is the major, like, where is this roadblock? Why do founders not end up where they should in this particular case?
Yeah, I do a lot of work now on helping business owners find a way of exiting and realizing value from their companies. And I think probably the biggest thing that I see is that most people, when they start a company, start it because of passion or wanting to change their lives or come out of a job or whatever it is. But what they don't consider early on is that they might well end up with a saleable asset. Excuse me. And most of the time, if you do a good job over several years and it compounds, you end up with something that somebody else would happily buy. But if you haven't considered that early on, like there's a bit of a joke that I say to people, the best time to prepare for an exit is day one. The second best time is today, because if you don't start preparing, when the time comes and you're probably in the best position for an exit, you're not going to be attractive to a buyer. And then what tends to happen is, the biggest problem I find is that when people are ready to exit, it's normally when they're burnt out, they're tired, they're not inspired by the business anymore, they're a bit bored, and they're trying to sell them for the wrong reasons rather than selling on a high, when they would have been more energized and probably a better person to have pitched selling their business. And also, you know, high energy and momentum is attractive to a buyer. So you want to sell at a peak, not at a trough. And I think that's the challenge. A lot of people that come to me, I say, look, we need to work for 12 months together to rebuild that momentum to a place where you're at a peak again. Because right now you're down here, and then you're going to sell for a lower value than you could realize.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that, at least with my company, was one reason I think a lot of founders also don't prepare properly for that moment, is because they identify themselves too much with the company. It's like, at least it was the case for me. It's like a baby. It grows up with you, and this is a too much attachment, I guess, often,
Yeah.
which should not be there. And then also, they don't treat it like a product. They sort of treat it like a relative or something like that.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I think this happens a lot. And it's also the dependency, right? So a lot of businesses, small business, they depend on the owner or the founder. They couldn't really work without that
Hmm.
person, right?
That's a big part of the work. So, most founders like to hold on quite tight, because they want to make sure that things are operating and working, especially in a small business. If you're sub 50 people, founders still probably very involved typically. So building in a succession plan and a senior leadership plan, and like making sure that there is something that's attractive to a buyer, because buyers are always looking for a de-risked situation. And you are, as the founder, probably the biggest risk to them. Because if you go today and you're connected to everything and still running everything, they obviously lose. So yeah, de-risking is the key.
Okay, so how do you do that? I mean, if you, let's say, assume we are in the early stages of our startup and we're not even at 50 employees. We're talking about, let's say, five, right? So we're just
Yeah.
having, we've got a product, it's viable, we're selling, and it looks great, everything. So you said this is when I should start preparing for that
Start
moment
planning.
already?
Definitely, yeah, yeah, day one. Even if it's just one person in the business, start thinking about what that future exit could be, because that will help shape the people you hire. So what you want to do is think about, and one of the best ways of doing this is to sit and imagine that you were going out with X amount of money in your hand to buy your own business. So put yourself in the buyer's mindset and say, if I was going to buy this business today, what would I want to see? And actually, that tends to present quite a lot of really good questions around, okay, well, actually, I would want there to be a sales function. I would want to understand I'd want to make sure they were organized. They had client contracts. I'd want to make sure that the product was defendable, that there was some IP, that there was so all of these things start to shape around that. But basically, what you want to do as a founder is say, how do I create systems, processes, and people in positions that remove me from being at the heart of everything? And that's really the key philosophy. And the more you can systemize and use technology for that, AI these days, whatever, and create your own elements of IP, because there's lots of different assets in a business. A lot of people just think the revenue is the asset or the client contracts, but actually how you work, your processes, your everything, all of that is IP. So document it, make it a resource, make it credible, and that adds to the value later on.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, the businesses differ a lot in their operation, right? So,
Hmm.
the
A lot.
how they deliver value to their customers, and I mean, there's a ton of we could talk about. I mean, hundreds of, oh, well, maybe not that many, but KPIs like the what to focus on and LTV and all of these super
Yeah.
important figures, I guess. But I'm more interested in the, let's go back to the human element, and because my podcast is more about the failures. I call those the rock bottom moments that often also trigger growth. Because if you're in a comfortable place all the time, I mean, things could go well for for years, but there's always, I mean, also the bigger companies, they all have like these moments where they're almost at the abyss, like when they lose they could potentially lose everything. And so those are the moments that shape the founders and the decision makers, because they become, or they manage to overcome those moments, or they
Mm.
don't, right? So
Hmm.
what would be for you, like as a founder, like do you have, I guess you have worked with a ton of different personalities, right, and founders. So what is for you the number one skill that a founder has to have, or you should probably be go look for a job if you don't have it,
Yeah,
like
yeah, 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 yeah. No, this one is really easy, and I think it's the one word is resilience. So
resilient.
if I look back on my own career and my businesses, the failures that I've had have taught me so much more than the successes, right? So when I was in my early 20s, I had a promotional company. We were doing elements of kind of selling portfolio packages, modeling days. We were speccing in promotional staff to different venues and brands. And it started pretty well. And, we were always running at a slight loss, but actually we're getting more and more work. And I saw the potential. So I took on quite a hefty loan. I think I was like a 50K loan at 21 or something. And personal loan, personal guarantees. That business never worked. So I came out of that at like 21 and a half, 22, with this huge amount of debt. Having fended for myself pretty much since I was 16 and left home, I was in this position of like, for the first time, like real jeopardy, I think, trying to figure it out. And I was like, right, the only thing I can do is go and get a job, and I need to knuckle down. I need to, but actually what I realized was after a couple of years of doing the job, like I'm never going to pay that debt off just doing a normal job. So that element of like resilience and belief in myself started to come back, but it was not for a couple of years. And I think we're just humans, right? So these things happen. But in the end, I realized that actually starting a business again gave me the best chance of getting on top again rather than behind. And then I launched an experience day company selling car racing, paintballing, hot air balloons, all that stuff in shopping centres around the UK and also in Australia. Made a lot of money, paid off that debt and managed to push forward. So if I hadn't had the resilience and that belief in myself to just try again, I've got so many friends. This is an example where they'll try a business or they think about trying a business for a long time. They have one go, doesn't work, they'll never do a business again. Like they're anti-business now, they're anti-entrepreneurship. And it's like, well, that's because they're not resilient enough. And they don't realize that actually you need those setbacks, you need those failures to be able to actually succeed in the long run. I think
Yeah.
the more you fail, the more you'll succeed.
Yeah. How much do you agree with the following statement? Entrepreneurship is just personal development in disguise.
I think it is. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just human, right? So whatever label you want to put on it, it is. It's about experience, growing, knowing what to do, what not to do. There's a reason that second and third time founders are more successful than first time founders. They have the experience. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
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 right.
literally it.
Yes. The worst moments is, I mean, it can feel like almost like for me, to me, it was like death. Like I feel like when my company crumbled, it wasn't about the money. I mean, the money was bad too because I was left with nothing to my name other than my piece of luggage. But the real pain came from identity loss, like this
Mhm.
feeling like, okay, now I'm done, right? So now I'm not anymore. And I'm not what now, right? So and then, but it's also like it has taught me a lot about being able to lean in the pain and
Mhm.
stay there
Mhm.
for a while and then sort of be okay. So I've watched some pieces of content of you, and I saw you also meditate, right?
Mhm.
How much how much this spirituality has have to do with that personal development side of things and becoming a better entrepreneur to you?
I think it's we all have our own versions of spirituality and our own beliefs, but for me, it's taken years of developing this. I think early on I got into business purely for financial reasons and security and all the rest of it. Over time, I think as I've developed more and got a bit older, a few more gray hairs, I definitely spend more time pondering and thinking about like what gives me meaning and purpose. And so I do try to find, so my meditation elements have changed a lot over the years. I used to try and force myself to sit for 20 minutes a day and do all the things that everyone said you need to do and cross your legs and, all that stuff. And I just found it hard to really get into a pattern with. But what I do now is every morning I'll spend 2 to 5 minutes just thinking about what I'm grateful for. Because I believe that if you're grateful and you think you have gratitude in your life and you start the day with gratitude, it's hard to have a bad day because you set
Yeah.
yourself up in a really, really positive frame of mind. Okay, and there's always things that creep in that you're like, I wish that was a bit different. But over time, you train yourself to really focus on the things that we have to be grateful for because there's so many people in the world that are always worse off, no matter what your situation. So I think that's important. And then I think spirituality is a journey we all go on for our whole lives, and I don't think we ever really get to an end point with it. It's a constant piece. But I really believe in this element of energy and momentum. And I think in business you see this a lot. So as a founder, you create an energy kind of whirlwind around you. And if you're lucky enough to find good people that you can pull into that, it just creates more strength and that kind of tornado keeps growing and keeps growing. And that momentum then develops over time into something that pulls and attracts more clients, more staff, more success. But you need to be at the heart of that as the founder and creating that circle of energy. And I think it's a very fascinating topic. If you have a negative energy or you lose sight of that and you lose sight of momentum, or you often I see in businesses you splinter out and you try to do too many things at once rather than just focusing, you often can divert that away and it doesn't keep the strength of it. So actually things fall through the cracks and often that's when businesses don't work. So yeah, I think energy, spirituality, all of those things play a big part in what I do and how I try to perceive the world now day to day. I mean, what is it they say? 95% of the world is perception, 5% is reality. So 95% of things are happening around you just because they're happening anyway. Whether you were here or not, they're going to happen. There's only 5% that you can actually control. So just focus on that stuff.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I also believe it matters. I didn't really give it too much attention at the beginning of my journey as an entrepreneur. Same as you at the beginning. I just really cared about the money, so I just wanted to make a lot of money. And so when I went into nanotechnology, it was like, okay, this is futuristic. This is the future. I love that, and let's do it, right? So I didn't really think
Mm,
about anything else. But energy and momentum you just brought up.
mm,
How much do you think this depend on a mission? Like, because there's this famous, Simon Sinek, who famously wrote that book about start with why.
mm.
So how important is that on your, is it to become, I mean, how much do you think is success is tied to this, why we're doing things, and how aware and conscious we are about those reasons why we actually, why we're doing what we're doing, right?
I think it's probably everything. So we talk about the word resilience, we talk about all those things. You see it in fighters, right? Prize fighters. The best prize fighters in the world are the ones that have nothing to lose and have everything to that they're fighting from the bottom up and they want to win everything. It's a similar philosophy. I think basically when you think about that resilience piece I spoke about, if you come at things with a deep, almost like unconscious element as a why. Like if you believe that you have something to give the world or you want to solve a problem or you need to be successful for a genuine reason that's deep within your being, I think you'll always find a way. So that is your why. Your why is just imprinted in you, right? I think when you try to then as a founder separate that out and put it into a company format of like what is the why of the company, I think it's important to always relate it back to like what drives you, because if you find that, you'll be able to then create that momentum as well. So I think they're definitely connected. I think it's yeah, that Simon Sinek thing was incredible. I mean, it changed his life, that's for sure.
He changed his life, and I think a lot of lives of
Yeah,
all the people that listen to this. I mean, it's inspired a lot
yeah,
of people. It's also because he's a very inspiring personality, right? So he
he
has
is,
his,
he is.
the way he speaks, and it's, yeah, he's just a very inspiring figure. But it's true. It's also true, right? So, because I feel like a lot of founders have, do they feel like the obligation to sort of, okay, now this is my mission statement and just gonna put it on the wall here so when clients walk in they can see it, but there's a disconnect often.
There is.
And there's no, so the way I see it is that, I mean, ideally it should be something you actually, like the way you just mentioned, when you wake up in the morning and you have your 3 reasons why you're grateful today. This should also be on your, you should be this is something we should remind ourselves why we're actually doing this. I'm trying to,
Yeah,
because I was
yeah.
one of those founders who also just put it on the wall and then never looked at it again with my first company. It's
Hmm.
probably the reason why it failed as well. And now I believe, well, now I'm doing something totally different. There's nothing, I mean, from a business standpoint, let's just completely different, but I feel a different drive now, because I think there's a, well, at least I believe I have a mission now again, because I was lost
Hmm.
for some time. And it
Yeah.
took me a while to rediscover my purpose,
Mm,
but it's this why. It's also this good. It's like the fuel that gives you in the difficult moments. You can hold on to that, right? Even if it's not working,
hmm,
things are not working out the way
mm,
we would like them to. Often, right?
definitely.
There is another figure out there, and it's actually one of your English. He's not an entrepreneur. He's an author. Richard Reeves. You know that guy?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard of Richard. Yeah.
Yeah. The other day I saw an interview on Chris Williamson
Oh,
podcast,
yeah.
and I love Chris Williamson as well. He covers a
It's
lot of
good.
different topics, but also a lot of
He does.
self improvement, and so I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the, we're talking about men specifically now?
Mm.
What do you think is right now one of the problems men face in this? Why is there such a disconnect, and why are so many men like lost right now? What do you think?
I think a lot of it is it's probably a compound effect of lots of things, right? From the fact that the world is so much more connected, but actually disconnected in reality. So I think that doesn't help. Like the impact of social media, I think there's a positive side, but there's also a really dark side of like that constantly looking at other achievers and what other people are doing and that kind of imposter syndrome piece that it drives. And I think that there's an element of kind of you need strong mindset to be able to deal with that and read through it and actually say, well, actually, you know what? A lot of what you see is probably the rose tinted version. So, you know, I think also generally like men are probably finding it hard to find like that key person of influence, that key like mentor, person to believe in, to follow, whatever. Like, I think if all of your peers and your friends around you are also a bit lost, it's hard, right? So, I think there's also like it's certainly in the West, there's a destructive nature around alcohol and drink and that societal place. Like the only time we really get together and interact is at the weekend over beers and whatever else. And then, you know, it's kind of, so I think there's generally like a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of, it's a multifaceted answer, I think, but generally like probably the thing that people can do to address it is to be more focused on trying to improve themselves, reading, educating. When you're with people, have like genuine connection, whether that's through sports or through nature, whatever. Like just try to keep your head out your phone a little bit more. I think would help most people.
Yeah, you're right. It's a multifaceted issue. It's not a. This is a complex issue,
It
I
is very
guess.
complex, very complex.
Do you think there's a connection between the crisis we are experiencing right now and between the lack of? First of all, would you say that entrepreneurship and becoming like a founder, like a entrepreneur, do you think that's a masculine thing to do, or is it gender
No.
neutral?
I think it should be gender neutral. I think historically, obviously, like a lot of other professions, it has probably been more masculine focused. However, I don't think it should be. I think it should be certainly neutral. I think the entrepreneurship element of the world, like everybody these days, if you ask them what they want to do, it's either, if you ask a kid, they either want to be an influencer or a business owner or CEO or whatever. I think there's like this, there's almost like a pressure on young men to try and achieve and to be like a CEO, to be, you know, whatever. I guess there's part of that feels like that's what they need to do to attract a, you know, a partner or whatever. But actually, like some people, entrepreneurship shouldn't be for them. And that's okay as well. You can still learn from entrepreneurs. You can still learn from, you know, the psychology of building a business. But, you know, there's plenty of people that actually, you know, maybe aren't suited to it, you know, and I think that's okay as well. I just think you have to try and find a bit of your own internal drivers and understand actually what will make you happy. And I think we can't do that when we're glued to our screens 6, 7 hours a day, or we're doom scrolling in the evening and trying to find answers through other people's perfect lives that are presented on the internet. I just think that that's probably the biggest impact right now on mental health is people's overuse of digital devices. And that's, I know that's a bit rich for me saying that when I've got a personal brand and I post every day on social media and stuff, but the stuff I try to post is educational and real and hopefully not glamour. I don't post much about my lifestyle. I have a you know pretty good lifestyle, but I don't post that stuff because I don't want people to, there shouldn't be comparisons on those things. People should focus on what they can control and what's in their reality day to day, and then work to
Yeah,
improve on it.
yeah. And also, it's not you are you create content, which is very different from consuming it.
Yes.
I mean, it's not the same,
Yeah.
right? So the problem
It's
is
not
the
the same.
consumption, not the
Yeah.
creation. We have a
We
consumption
do.
problem with
Dopamine problem.
dopamine. Yes, of course. Distraction. This is one book I read the other day. It was really good. I forgot the name, but it's basically distraction. What it actually means is track is you go in the right direction. Distraction is you go in the other in the opposite direction, which is not the direction you want to go. And when you look
Mm,
at it like that, then becomes clear how destructive this behavior actually is.
yeah.
Because the word distraction in itself sounds like harmless, but it's
Mm,
really the
mm,
opposite of that. Yeah. So I'm asking, for me, this is a very this is a rabbit hole we could go in, right? So because
mm.
just a few weeks ago I had another English guy on my show. I have had a few of them already, but one guy you might probably know, James Sutton. Have you heard of him?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a really cool guy. We had a lot of disagreements, but at the same time we
Of
had one of the best connections. So we really it was just a great conversation and very respectful
course.
and thoughtful. although we did not agree on a lot of issues, but it's not a problem, right? So I actually would argue that but the conversations that are not as like we agree on everything that are the best ones, right? We want to, it's
Mm,
good to have certain, I'm trying to generate some like different views
yes. Yeah, yeah.
and
That's good.
perspectives. So because otherwise it's boring, right? So
Mm,
yeah.
mm, mm.
And then I'm trying to, since my audience also, or my focus is men, I'm trying to sort of merge, see where those lines merge, like the masculinity a little bit, because there's a lot of, in that space there's a lot of negativity as well, which I recognize,
Mhm.
and he pointed that out, like this borderline misogyny content, and then there's all, but there's, I do think that men are risk takers, like naturally, like in this is our, I
Mm,
think our build to not just problem solve, but also to seek out and go, like do something, like create something. This is a very masculine thing to do, I believe. And so now also probably the reason why so many people are, most entrepreneurs are male, right? It
mm,
hasn't
mm,
really changed in, not even now. And
mm.
maybe it's maybe not as much as before, but yeah. So there's a challenge in that right now, and it's a topic that fascinates me, because if it's
Yeah.
true what we just agreed on, that entrepreneurship is personal development,
Mm.
then as a consequence, the consequence of that is you just have to get your shit together, right? This is just it's that's the bottom line, right? So I mean, if it's not the money, if it's your, it's where you, who you become, and of course it's money. Every business has a profit. Is
Most people go into it for that, right? Most people start a business for the money. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, we already figured out that being an entrepreneur is a journey that never ends, like meditation. That
Yeah.
you become wiser, hopefully, over time, right? Because
Mm.
why? Because you fuck up or you screw up, and then you learn
Yeah.
from those mistakes. And then next time you're just a little bit smarter and you take a different approach, and hopefully you end up not climbing the wrong ladder. Because this is another issue that I've had a lot of conversations now, because it's actually mind-boggling how many, all of my interviewees have been like in a very dark place. And one guy, he went to China, got sued for almost 500,000, and then got a brain cancer, a
Oh
tumor.
God.
And then after that, he still built a company, which is now this amazing achievement, right? So, but he was really at the,
Insane.
so this, so this is really what I think is the inspiring part of what
Mm.
inspires me, is that is those moments, right? Because you have to go through this. There's no if there's no struggle, and there's no victory as well, right? There's
Yeah,
darkness
yeah.
and light, and this
No
is
pain,
part
no
of,
gain, right? It's so
nope,
true.
yeah. Yes, and I think a part of this crisis of masculinity has also to do, there's this archetypes, men that would have, there's different archetypes, and there's one archetype that's, I think, is suppressed a little bit, like, and we are warriors deep down often, and we're, a lot of guys are just, I don't know, they're weak is the word, I guess, because not
Not
really interested
physically, but
in
mentally. Yeah, yeah.
mentally, yeah, which often translate, it's connected, right?
Yeah. It is all connected mentally and physically. Yeah, it's all the same. Yeah.
It's all the same, right? So if you're mentally ill, you're probably not going to be physically
No.
strong. It's very
No.
unlikely. There might be
Yeah.
exceptions,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but more often than not,
It's
right?
mind body soul connection. Yeah, exactly. It's all one, right? So that's why you often find high achievers are also fit and healthy and are like, it's all of those things roll into one, don't they?
Yes, yes. And without the struggle, without my loss, without what I've lost, and I would probably still drinking. I would probably have a lot of other bad habits now, and I don't know. It's just so you can always look at back in hindsight and then find
Yeah.
appreciation for all of those things.
So have you stopped drinking altogether now? You've stopped?
Yes, I stopped
Yeah.
4th of July 2022.
Okay, nice. I feel good for it.
I do. No, I've been, I mean, I've added, I mean, I started also, I was always been like, I like to train, but now I also, I started to do keto diet, and
Okay.
I turned from 23% body fat to 10% body fat, and then
Wow.
it's really like I'm 47 now, right? So, but I've never been
Yeah.
as fit as now. And like 10 years ago, I was like
It's
not
amazing.
not not comparable. But yeah, I'm really in good
Good.
shape now. Also
That's good.
mentally, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe this without that, I wouldn't be in that place now. So I'm grateful, and I'm
Yeah.
also very grateful that I didn't plan for this, Luke. I didn't plan
No.
for a podcast. This just popped up like an idea one day, and I did it. And now talking to super inspiring people, and just those conversations is already a reward
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
learn so
Yeah.
much from other people if you just listen, right?
Of course you do. Of course you do. You learn so much more, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So much more.
And this is all I right now. I'm traveling. I mean, I've been in Bali now for 5 months.
Oh, nice. Okay. Cool. Cool.
Yeah, I'm also in an Airbnb, by the way,
Yeah. 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 Me too today. Yeah. 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 It's but Bali, great spot, right? Whereabouts are you?
in Nusa Dua.
Ah, okay. Okay. Nice. Very
You
cool.
know,
So
no,
I know Bali I've been twice. I need to spend some extended time there because I have so many friends that are doing it, and just the restaurant scene, the cafe culture, like the whole thing is so cool, right? Last time I was in Bali was 10 years ago, so I think it's changed a lot probably in that time. But yeah, a lot of people keep telling me I need to get over and spend some more time.
yeah, Bali is great. There's a lot of cool. I mean, there's a lot going on here with events and masterminds. Last month, I went on a mastermind. You know, Matt Gray, also
Ah,
big
yes, yeah,
influencer.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he invited me to a mastermind, and there were a lot of other people. Really
cool.
cool. Yeah,
Is
yeah,
he
yeah.
based
Bali,
out
there's a
there as
lot.
well then?
What?
He's based in Bali as well, is he?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
He's
okay.
here. Well, he's Canadian, but he lives here. I think
Yeah,
most of the time,
yeah,
at
yeah,
least.
yeah, yeah. Nice.
A lot of entrepreneurs are just leaving, like the Europe, and
I know,
it's
I know.
just Germany is an exodus right now. Entrepreneurs leaving like in
The UK
droves.
is crazy. 10,000
Mil-
high net worths left the UK last year, which was only third to China and Russia.
Yeah,
It's
the same
insane.
same
It's
problem in
insane.
Germany.
Yeah.
Did you leave also because of that reason? Or
Yeah, I mean, I left for some more permanent sunshine and certainly, yeah, better lifestyle, opportunity, all of
are
that
you
stuff. So
single?
yeah, no, I have a long-term girlfriend, 7 years.
And she's living with you in Portugal.
She's here, our dog as well, Harper. So yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we're just doing this nomadic piece for 6 months, jumping around and see where we like, and then we're gonna get a buy something or rent or whatever. We'll see, but something a bit longer term. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is yeah. I guess
Freedom.
they have freedom is yes. Freedom is big, big here too for
I
me.
think there's an interesting thing. I saw Sahil Bloom talk a little while ago, and he was talking about um, time, the new currency, which I totally agree with. And I think, what is success if you don't have control of time? And if you can control time and environment, then actually I think you're more successful than the richest people on the planet, right? So um, I would rather have trade my freedom and being able to pick where and how I spend my time over having a billion in the bank for sure. So
Yeah.
actually, you don't need a billion. You don't even need multi millions. Probably you just need enough to be able to have that freedom. So I think that's the real success. That's provides happiness and choices that most people are aspiring to try and reach. And actually, that's where most people then try to reach the monetary goal because they believe that it will give them that, which it can for sure. But I think
Not
often people need
necessarily.
need less. Not necessarily, but
Yeah, it's easier to
yeah,
aim for location independence when you're young because you
yes,
can learn you learn an online skill or online something you can do and offer online. And then you have location independence. Even if if you're only making a few thousand per month, you can still
yeah.
have this really ultimate freedom and movement. So you
So
can
true.
my first company was a I was technically also like rich. I had a house on the beach and a Porsche in the garage, but I was tied to a business that couldn't move, and so I was not that free. So this time I'm not gonna make the same mistake again. and
Hmm.
do it differently. Yeah. So before we end here, can you share one or two or three tips for the younger audience who want to achieve that freedom? What would you focus on if you're just starting out and want to become an entrepreneur when you don't really know
Mm.
yet where you're headed, but you know that you want to start a business? What are the three things you should
Think
focus on?
I think there's a few things, isn't there? So look at your own skill sets, understand what industries, what types of roles allow you that type of freedom to work remotely, and where there's going to be opportunities, whether it's a job or your own business. And then go and do the work, educate yourself, do the courses. Success leaves clues. So look at what and who has already been successful in and around that space, and then reverse engineer that, emulate it. Look for clues. There is always clues on how they got there. And most people these days share their experiences of how they did it. So just go and emulate that. Outside of that, I think focus on, if you're looking at hiring staff and you want that freedom, that true freedom of movement, you need to look at a global workforce and actually be open to much more agility in that. A lot of the work I do with my clients, they've never thought about hiring offshore or having overseas contractors or whatever. And it's like, guys, come on, this is just a whole new world of increased margins, often better productivity and freedom. So just
Less
lean into it.
obligations.
Less obligations. Yeah, no, less stress.
Yes,
Less
absolutely.
stress.
Because those, like the labor laws in those usually are very strict, and I also can say that from experience, because
Yeah.
when you have to lay off people and you can just can be a big problem. But on these platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, it's really easy to get people, and good people, actually pretty
Yeah.
skilled people as well.
Yeah, well, motivated people that want that freedom and want to better their lives, and generally they want to do a great job because they want future work. It's as simple as that. It's like that, carrot and stick situation. Like, whereas if you get an employee often in a business in a location, they can come in and just do that 9 to 5. It's very different. You find that entrepreneur mindset then in your contractors, which is great. It's exactly what you want. You're going to get a good output generally.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that. What is your most controversial opinion on entrepreneurship?
I think probably that most people that go into entrepreneurship probably shouldn't, unless they actually take some time to properly think it through, do their research. It's not for the faint-hearted, and a lot of people go into it just thinking that it's a cool thing to do, right thing to do. They're going to make loads of money, but without actually any blueprint. They don't take on advisors. They don't, you know, it's not for the faint-hearted. And I think the beauty of entrepreneurship is that everyone can try it. I think that is the beauty, but most people probably shouldn't.
Yeah, it's like the 80-20 rule, I guess.
Yeah,
20%
yeah, yeah,
of,
yeah. For sure,
yeah.
for sure.
Most people find out pretty quickly if they're
That's true. If they got
so
it or not. Yeah, yeah, that's for
yeah,
sure.
you either have it or got it, or you don't, right?
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. All right, Luke, thank you so much for your time. It was really
Thank
inspiring.
you.
Learned new stuff from you. Where would you like the audience how can they reach out to you if they want?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a website, luketobin.com, so you can find me on there. My newsletter's on there. The Success Method, I share weekly tips, tricks, good, the bad, the ugly of entrepreneurship and stuff that's happening to me, and hopefully helps you. And then other than that, my handle on most websites is Luke T Tobin, so double T, Luke T Tobin, and feel free to follow. Hopefully there'll be some insightful bits shared on there.
Cool. Thank you so much, Luke.
Thank you.
Have lots of success, and hope to see you soon again.
Likewise. Thank you.
Bye bye. Okay, that was